Gotta suck up my spray here. Hold on.
So, holy shit.
Is that a good beer you got there?
Oh my god, that is so good.
What beer you got? Oh, welcome to Movie Bonerz, everybody.
Welcome to Movie Bonerz, everyone. Yep.
We opened beers. Dustin, what's your beer?
Well, I'm drinking Say When. It's a double IPA from Saloon Door Brewing in Webster, Texas.
Okay.
It is a 9.5%.
Damn, son.
Yeah, it is tasty.
That's awesome. I'm drinking actually also somewhat potent beer. I'm drinking, it's called Wreak Havoc, which I thought was appropriate. And it's Imperial Red Ale from Bootstrap Brewing Company from somewhere in Colorado.
Nice.
It just says Colorado. I don't know. It's an 8.5 ABV.
Damn.
So,
well, I'm very proud of us for
glare going on there, but
for sticking. Whoops, wrong way. There we go.
It's like a mirror.
I like that we stuck with the. I went with like the first half of the movie, and you went with the second half of the movie.
Yep.
My beer is kind of in line with one of the rules, but
there you go. Yeah, the rules are important. Before we get into that, though,
yeah. Thank you, Wandering Lion Studios.
Yeah.
Beat you to it.
Wanted to remind everybody that our beer segment is sponsored by Wandering Lion Studios. I totally forgot last week that it is May now.
Yeah.
For some reason, I thought we had another week in April, but we did not.
No.
So last week was our first May episode. I meant to mention last week. I'll mention it this week. Their Artist of the Month for each month is really... Their Artist of the Month for each month is really cool. We've talked about it before.
Yeah.
Their Artist of the Month for May is a director, actually a film director, Christopher Putlock. He seems like a really cool guy. And one of the cool things that Wandering Lion does when you become an Artist of the Month is they like send you a little questionnaire and you fill in like your favorite movie and your favorite quote and all this stuff. And I really liked his quote. It seems like the kind of director that I would be into, where it's a quote from Flannery O'Connor, which is, "To the heart and the beating you shout, and for the almost blind you draw large and startling figures."
Ooh.
And his whole like theme seems to be just kind of get in, get out, make everything clear, make everything big, don't make it too crazy. So he seems like a cool guy. So Wandering Lion Studios, if you're an artist, go make friends with them. They're on Facebook and Instagram, wanderinglinstudios.biz.
Yeah.
You could be an Artist of the Month if you're cool enough.
Which, the folks at Wandering Lions are pretty cool. So chances are they're going to think you're cool enough too.
Yeah.
And that's
if
as much ass kissing as we've got for them right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, guys.
Check that out. I guess the only other announcement is that we have these on YouTube. So you should go, if you want to see the video form of the podcast, go to YouTube, Movie Bonerz channel on YouTube. And we were talking a little bit ago, we're going to start putting some extra content on there.
Yeah.
So kind of the stuff we forget to talk about or check in. If I finally see a movie that I've been meaning to see that I said I would see, what did I think about it?
Did you actually do that with said movie?
I did that for the one I told you I was going to do.
Hey.
Did you do the one from
No.
the other one that we did?
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, we will get around to it.
We will.
Be putting
We
extra
promise.
Stuff there. Yeah. So yeah, check that out. And then I was going to mention for this episode specifically, follow us on social media because we will post when we're doing a episode like this, where we're going to give very heavy spoilers about it. Obviously, you're going to want to see it before you listen to the episode. I thought it would be helpful to give listeners a heads up that,
especially
we're
for
doing
a movie like the one we're going to dive into today.
Yeah, we're doing this movie, and if you want to listen to the episode, you're going to want to have seen it. So this is your advance notice. Bye. this is your advance notice to go and find that movie and see that movie. Maybe I can look up where you can stream it and stuff.
I would hope at this point, at least for like our generation and maybe a generation or two after, I would hope people have watched this. If you haven't, you're missing out on like way too many things. Not only is it an amazing movie, but I can't help but feel like it's actually a pretty important movie to watch. And
it's one of the biggest ever.
If you're only listening right now, you need to go into the YouTube channel and watch Jake wrestle with Murphy.
He's biting my neck.
Yeah.
Stay down. Yeah, Fight Club, which we'll get into, is like one of the most amazing and like socially changing movies of all time.
Yeah. We're going to obviously get into everything, but there was one thing, especially rewatching it. So I have it playing in the background right now.
So if he gets distracted, that's why.
Don't judge. But rewatching it a few times this week, I honestly, I started just really coming back to, I think Tyler Durden, the character Tyler Durden, should almost be considered like one of the most impactful, important, kind of anti-hero characters that we have.
Yeah.
And we can get into that kind of discussion a little later, but I'm like, oh my God. I feel like most of his dialogue, there's always a line or two that hit me differently every time I watch it. And watching it this week, there's been a couple that I'm like, ooh, that is such a heavy line.
Yeah. Fight Club always amazes me with the dialogue, with how well written it is, how impactful it is. Every narration that the narrator has, or every monologue that Tyler has, is so impactful and so meaningful. And they say things in an interesting way or a different way that's like catches you off guard, or it makes you think of something a way you didn't before. It's crazy.
And we'll obviously we're going to dive into all this. If you're watching the video,
but you
see my favorite piece of irony ever. It's a Tyler Durden pop, a Funko Pop. I love this guy, but the Fight Club's an interesting movie. So I own it. I have the physical DVD of it, and I've got my little pop figure of Tyler. And I feel like owning any kind of merchandising from this movie is wrong. Right. But I can't help it because it's so good to me.
You're torn because it's this thing that you love that has so much meaning in the world and in your life, and why wouldn't you want stuff about it?
Right.
But at the same time, the entire point of the movie, or a large section of the movie, there's a big point about not being materialistic, not having like the things that you own define you, and not needing an IKEA and decor and all this bullshit.
And so I was thinking about that today as well. I was like, it's kind of weird owning the movie, and being a fan, like being a huge fan of the movie and owning it, because I feel like I'm going against the principle, or one of the principles of the film, with materialism. But to err is human, right? So we're just going to stick with it. But Tyler's joining us today.
And also, which we'll get into a lot, the movie is full of hypocrisy. And so one of the biggest parts is the rules. And I enjoyed your post on Instagram about, it's going to be hard to have a podcast about this movie because we're not supposed to talk about it. But the whole point of the rules really is Tyler understands the rules they're supposed to be broken. The group's not going to grow if people actually abide by the rules, and it's actually he sets the rules to encourage people to get used to breaking rules so that they can go on and do everything that they do.
all the groundwork for Project Mayhem, which, when we get to that portion, the last third of this movie is so, like, challenging on every moral ground, and I'm sure we'll get into that.
Yeah, we sure will. All right, so spoiler alert. Obviously,
we're going to
dissecting
spoil the hell
Fight
out
Club.
of this movie.
You have to have seen it. We're gonna probably from the jump. We're probably not even gonna wait for the third act when there's an actual spoiler alert twist. We can from the jump talk about it from that perspective, because I think Fight Club is most interesting after you've seen it the first time. I think the second and third and fourth time it gets more interesting.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't know about you, but for me, I was fortunate enough to not have this movie spoiled for me when I saw it the first time, so I got to experience that twist as you're supposed to.
Yeah.
And I still, every time I watch it, knowing the ending, every time I watch it, when the reveal shows up, I'm constantly grinning, because it's one of the greatest, like, that's so good. And I agree with you. After you rewatch it a few times, you're like, at no point do they actually try to keep it hid.
Right.
It's pretty blatant from, I mean, the first line of the movie pretty much tells you how the movie's going to...
Yeah, the movie is constantly telling you, and then, so it does make it a lot more fun once you know that you're like... And then there are so many things that it also doesn't tell you, and you're starting to, like, trying to figure out for yourself, and so it's such a deep movie. It's so crazy. But yeah, I, like you, actually benefited from not having the twist spoiled for me. And unlike Sixth Sense, which I think is also one of the great movies that has a massive twist, but is also great and amazing, even if you know it still. It doesn't depend on the twist to tell the story. That's just a detail that... And, like, the more that I watch it, the more I'm like, okay, this part you don't even need anymore. There needs to be, like, a second version where I'm like... You don't need to explain this part to me because I already know this part.
Right.
Just show me all the other parts in more detail. That's what I really want.
Nice. Yeah, well, let's talk about... I mean, the first time I watched it, the most I had heard about it was, like, it's incredible, it'll blow your mind, you have no idea what you're about to watch. I'm like, whatever. So I was working at... It was my first job at... that video rental place. It was called Showtime up in northern Colorado when I was a kid, and I rented Fight Club one night because every high schooler, there was like a set handful of movies that every high school boy especially was like obligated to watch, and Fight Club was one of them. And pop it in, and I mean the opening credits are fun because it's like this rock and roll kind of Nine Inch Nail-y without being Nine Inch Nails kind of opening credits track, and you're like following this weird CGI'd, you don't quite know what you're watching yet. And then it pulls out on the gun in Edward Norton's mouth. It's like people ask me if I know, or whatever the first line is, and I just remember right from that moment I was like, oh, this is different. Like, what?
It's a kind of movie... There are a handful of these movies where I always kind of forget the first piece. And I don't know what it is, because it's like, it's so disconnected. Like, after that happens, after the whole first section happens, then it kind of drops you into, okay, this is where the movie really starts. And then it builds up and builds up back to that point, basically. There are a handful of movies where I'm like, I totally forgot this movie started this way. But it feels... Fight Club does such a good job of sucking you in. Like, it will suck you in, and it's moving, and it's kind of fun and interesting and different, and so you kind of just completely forget about everything that you feel like you should have worried about.
I mean, that first viewing of it, I don't know about you, but for me, I got stuck on, like, the dark quirkiness of it with like Brad Pitt's portrayal of Tyler and how he's
how gross the house is.
The house is gross. All the little things, you know, you got Brad Pitt riding around on a tricycle around this house in a bathrobe, and he crashes. They find the those little books, I Am Jack's, and then whatever organ it is.
Yeah.
And like, it's just full of weird, quirky moments. You do the whole where Norton's walking around his apartment explaining to you that he owns the IKEA catalogs.
Yeah.
He's ordering from taking a shit.
Yeah, it's got like the descriptions and the price tags and everything as he's looking around his house. Yeah.
And it's quirky, but on like a really dark level. You've got the whole thing of him like going to various support groups to help him sleep. So he's like addicted to that. That's his drug, is tragedy.
Yeah, he has insomnia, and going there and getting comforted like helps him cry and helps him sleep.
Right.
Yeah.
So I remember that first viewing, I was sucked into that quirky darkness. And like just the trying to figure out where the story was going with. I mean, how do you make a full-length movie about a fight club?
Right.
And I remember just being like, where's this movie going to go? And then Project Mayhem shows up, and I don't know about you, but I remember that first time just being like, what? How did we go from fighting in a basement to like this full militarized almost group? Like cult?
Yeah, the journey it takes you on and how you find yourself in this situation all of a sudden is very weird. I mean, it's kind of like the main character, where you're just all of a sudden here, and there's people in your house, and you're like, I don't know you, I don't know what's going on.
Right. There's a couple familiar faces, but you don't know. Like, it's funny how many characters have names.
Yeah.
But you don't learn 99% of them.
Right.
I mean, Jared Leto's character is named Angel Face, or just Angel. It's one of those.
I think it's Angel Face, yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
But his name's never spoken. He has like 4 lines, maybe. You see his face get punched in. You can't even tell that it's Jared Leto.
Yeah.
After Project Mayhem starts.
Right. My favorite part, we're kind of jumping around, but my favorite part is when Jared Leto is kind of, the first time I notice him is when Tyler Durden's giving that big speech in the Fight Club, and he's giving the speech about how we all wanted to be rock stars and movie stars. He like basically looks right at Jared Leto when he says we all wanted to be rock stars.
Right.
And I like my headcanon to be that this is a movie where that is actually Jared Leto, and he decided to join a Fight Club, and Tyler knows that it's Jared Leto, and he's talking like to him about him, kind of. It's like, we know that you're a rock star, but you need to like be like brought down to our level, kind of thing.
Don't let it get to your head, man.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah, and we do tend to, when you know this, man, when we do these kind of deep dives, we bounce everywhere. So for new listeners or watchers, just sit back. Well,
it's just we're feeling the flow of it, man. Yeah. You had actually an interesting point that I wanted to talk about also, which is kind of when you first saw it, the age you first saw it at, and how it seemed like high schoolers, like early college age people, especially guys, were very drawn to it. Yeah. And it's certainly the kind of movie that I feel like people might say it's their favorite movie, and I think a lot of people who have maybe seen it once or haven't seen it at all will be like, oh, that's a weird movie to have as your favorite movie. But the more I watch it, the more I'm like, this is a legit, incredible movie that is probably worth being a favorite movie. But I think those age ranges, especially those age ranges of young men, is kind of who it's for, in a sense. Like, it's I see why they're drawn to it, because that's the age where you're really starting to enter the real world. You're really starting to see how fake it is, see the facades, see the veneer, and kind of wanting to be rebellious also against it. So you understand kind of Tyler's perspective. You understand want IKEA. I don't need IKEA. I don't need to get married. I don't need to go to college.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's asking me about what I'm going to do for a living. Well, like, I need to pick a major. I need to do all these things. And you want to kind of rebel against that. And I totally see that kind of being attractive as a message or moral, I guess.
Yeah, it's funny because I agree with it. Definitely feels geared for like a young adult, like early 20s age, primarily because you're being introduced to the real world for the first time, and it's bullshit. And I agree with that. But it also, I mean, it feels very relevant for, like, really any kind of age group. Just as, you know, the younger age group, it's more for embracing kind of the rebellion against norms. For, like, our age or older age groups, I feel like it's more of a reminder of stop getting sucked into this kind of lifestyle. You know, there's a scene in the movie. It didn't really stick with me the first couple times I saw it because I was young, but now when I watch it, it just stands out, and it's fine because I texted you before recording, and it was what I quoted. But I'm like, the whole car ride scene where Tyler, you know, it's a full car, and he just lets go of the steering wheel and just lets the car do what it needs to do. It's such a, like, frightening scene, but to me it's such a heavy metaphor into, like, you gotta just you just gotta accept the crash. You just gotta do this. You know, like, don't go crash your car on purpose. Do not do that.
Please. 10 and 2, people. 10 and 2. Yeah, no, I totally get that. I think a lot of younger people are attracted to it for that reason.
Yeah.
But I do agree with you. I think that they also don't always fully get it, and you to some degree can't fully get it until you're older, kind of maybe the age of the characters, and have had those life experiences, have had those office jobs where you hate the boss, or have all that stuff kind of pile up, and where you're searching for meaning in your life in another way, kind of getting towards midlife crisis age, and like you see all these guys get attracted to the Fight Club because it's new, it's real, it's not fake. They're searching for something that's real in this world, and that even if it's pain, even if it's gross, even if it's kind of dark, at least it's real.
Right. Yeah. I think the actual Fight Club itself that's in the movie is really interesting because the majority of the people you see joining are middle-aged men, and they're like suits and ties, getting their faces bashed in, and then they're like laughing and they're like, hey, let's do it again next week. Hey,
they're friends right after.
Right. Yeah, I've always loved that the Fight Club itself, there's zero actual animosity in it. It is, everyone is there for the same reason. They're all looking for that release. They're looking for something real. And this is just how they get everything out. I always thought that was such an interesting thing. I'm shocked that, like, no one really got in trouble with this movie, because I know when it came out, like, across the country, there were people that took the movie literal and
like, this is a good idea.
And formed legitimate fight clubs just like in the movie, and you're like, whoa. It's not telling you to actually beat each other to a pulp. This is movie magic, not...
Yeah, I mean, that's true, but I think that it rings true with so many people because they, A, are like those characters and hungry for something, and B, there is kind of a truth or purity or something that's lacking. So kind of a big thing about the movie is it's about men and masculinity and somewhat toxic masculinity, and why there's an absence of why they don't know how to be men. Really, there's a whole section where Tyler's in the bathtub and they're kind of talking about how they were raised, and they share similarities, and that's another clue that hey, maybe these are the same people. But they talk about how they were a generation raised by women. That why would they want to get married and get involved with another woman? They don't think that would really help them find who they are or what they need to do. I watching Fight Club, especially this week, in like a 2021 mindset where so many people are into Joe Rogan, so many people are into Jocko Willink, so many people are into Ryan Michler. Like, there are a lot of male figures that are very much into, no, if it's beneficial to go to jiu-jitsu class and roll around and try to kill each other, and then pat each other on the back, and you can find value in that, especially as for a lot of people, but especially for men. I think that there's people are trying to fill that hole in some way, and I think that there's truth in the movie about that, even if it is a little bit excessive, where they're beating themselves bloody.
I guess that's what the excessiveness of it. I think like the real world, so people have a tendency to take what we see in film and TV and all that,
for sure,
and we definitely like don't realize that there is kind of a boundary still on it. And so I think that was probably the problem, or like could have been the problem with those real fight clubs that started popping up, was they didn't know when to stop. I mean, one of the rules in Fight Club is like, as soon as someone goes limp or taps out or just like yells stop, any kind of signal that the fight's done, the fight's done. And I think the problem could have, or maybe it did, because I know the clubs didn't last long, was people weren't following that
the rules.
Rule.
Ironically, that's part of the hypocrisy. The rules are made to be broken, but also you do need to follow some of the rules.
Right. Tyler seems to be okay with breaking the first two.
Yeah.
Ish.
He needs them to break the first two. He needs
those two rules to get broken. And those are like, to me, that's the rebellious side of it. You know, like, I'm going to give you these two, you rebel against those two. I want you to rebel.
Yeah.
But then the following list is more of the like, okay, but these are the actual ones that pertain to the Fight Club.
Yeah, these are specific to fighting, and also they make sense. We need to just, have a nice organized Fight Club.
I think my favorite rule is the last one, which is if it's your first time at Fight Club, you have to fight. Yeah. I love that rule because it kind of scares me. I mean, like...
Well, yeah, so many people want to show up just to watch. You get a bunch of looky-loos.
But, like...
Yeah, it's scary once you actually put in it, and you're like, oh, shit.
Like, you mean I'm gonna have to get hit? Oh, crap. But it could be beneficial, like you said, that physicality, and I don't do the fighting, but I mean, when I used to go to, like, hard rock and metal concerts, the mosh pits... to me, are kind of the music world's Fight Club. It's not there to actually harm anyone, and everyone in that mosh pit is there the same reason. Everyone's getting the same shit out, and you're all friends afterwards. Yeah, for sure. You're there to have fun. It's a little bit dangerous, but there certainly is that camaraderie that you build, basically, by as soon as the music stops, you're like, hey, man, that was awesome. Right, like, you look around, everyone's laughing and, like, trying to take a quick breather. And like, I'm never going to see you again, so this has been fun. Yeah. It's nice having those single-serving friends.
I knew where you were going with that.
Yep.
Oh, man. Yeah. I mean, so a lot of people call... so I realized something funny. I don't know if you realized it. Our first movie dissection episode was about Birdman. Right. Also heavily Edward Norton. So we may just be going down the list of Ed Norton movies, but so I thought that was funny.
I didn't even connect those.
Yeah. Huh. But a lot of people call his character Jack. which I understand.
Yep.
Because he has the whole gimmick and spiel about I am Jack's medulla oblongata or whatever it is. He's billed as the narrator. I tend to call him the narrator and see him as that. Do you have a preference?
It kind of goes back and forth for me.
Yeah.
I think if he has a name, it has to be Jack because of all the stuff that, like, I am Jack's whatever is said. As soon as he gets to Tyler's home through the rest of the movie, that, I mean, it's spliced, or not spliced, but it is said quickly and just kind of like subtly thrown in there. You can't call him Tyler because that's not his actual name. He just
even
takes
though
on that pseudonym later on.
There's a section of the movie where they're like, "You're Tyler." He's not Tyler. Tyler is a personality. So basically, the narrator has multiple personalities. Tyler is one of them.
Tyler is like the guy that is there to break the narrator's life. Like, his boring routine lifestyle, Tyler is showing up to destroy all of that. And he does. Just completely destroys it. I do tend to call him the narrator, though, not Jack. I do know him as the narrator, so I'm like you, where that'll be the one that I primarily call him. Every now and again, I'll be like, "Oh yeah, his name's got to be Jack. It has to be Jack." The first couple times I saw it, I was like, "Man, I wonder if his real name is one of the name tags that he uses." You know, like Marla calls him out on all the different names that he wears.
Yeah, he makes up names when he goes to the support groups.
Yeah, and I was like, it's got to be one of those.
That's kind of like multiple personalities in a way.
Yeah, you kind of get, that's like one of the early clues. They're not giving me his real name. That's got to be a clue. But you don't catch on to that. But I had thought, like, maybe it was one of those, but it becomes so obvious and apparent it's not any of those. So, narrator or Jack. I thought there was a third one, though.
Not that I've heard.
But I can't remember what it may have been. But even Edward Norton has said that he knows the character as Jack.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so I kind of like, all right, we'll just go with that.
Yeah, I don't know if the book explains more. I've heard that the movie changes some things from the book, but I don't read books. I don't know what books are.
I definitely want to read the book, and I'm more interested to read it. So the author actually claimed that the movie is the improvement, or like an improved version of his book. Okay. Rarely do you hear an author praise a film adaptation that way. Yeah. I mean, usually they're like, it does a pretty good job, and they leave it at that. Or if they're like Stephen King, he comes on and he's like, that fucking sucked. Yeah.
Or Alan Moore, he's like, I hate everything about it. I will never see it. Yeah.
Take my name off of it.
I'm pretty sure it was Chuck Palahniuk's first novel. I was looking. I'm pretty sure he wrote it in '96. It was his first like full length one. He had another he did some nonfiction and short fiction before that, but first fiction novel. Pretty interesting. Another crazy thing that I noticed, and I don't know if you noticed it, but it made me laugh while I was watching it, because we are recording this right after our top 10 family films episode.
We went from being super wholesome to not.
Which is so appropriate, especially for Fight Club, because Tyler Durden splices quick snippets of pornography into like family films. So when he said that, I had forgotten. I knew he did the splicing in the pictures, but I didn't remember it being specifically family films. Right. And I was like, that's amazing.
as soon as when I asked you, like, hey, what do you want to do for our next episode? And you were like, well, let's deep dive. I'm like, all right, what movie you thinking? And you're like, Fight Club. Immediately I was like, oh my God, we are the penis being spliced into the family film.
Yep. Sorry, Cinderella.
You don't know what you saw, but you know you saw something.
That little girl just
Crying.
She knows what she saw.
You've had to have noticed the movie also has those meta moments.
Yes.
And the splicing a giant penis into the film is one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting. The first time you see Tyler, he's just spliced in super quick, kind of in the background next to the doctor who's talking to him about, hey, you should go to a testicular cancer meeting. So fast, so quick, you're like, did I see something? It's before he tells you about, before you meet Tyler, before they tell you about how he splices things into film and how film works and how the cigarette burns work and real changes. And so it's kind of a meta film in that way. But yeah, they definitely do continue on that trend and splice in dick, and it's a good time.
It's right when the movie's like ending, you're like, man, what a crazy film, big ol' cock, and you're like, what the fuck? It's very, very funny. I enjoy. So I guess as part of talking about Fight Club, we have to talk about David Fincher. Yep.
And we did a little bit when we talked about Mank in the Oscars episode, or the Golden Globes episode and Oscars episode. But yeah, Fincher is amazing. And I especially enjoy when he's meta about movies. He did it a lot in Mank. He did it a lot in Mank that I learned from Fight Club about real changes and things like that.
Right.
But yeah, when they kind of do all of those pieces, I really like it. One of my favorite scenes in the movie is such a small scene. You know, I like those little small scenes. It's when Tyler's having a monologue and he's looking right at the camera, and he's vibrating, and he's vibrating so much that the picture is moving side to side, and then you see the edges of the film on the screen, and the the white light coming through. It's like, oh, you were watching a film. Remember, you're watching a film. It's just a crazy. It takes you out of it, kind of, but also puts you more into it. It's weird.
I would say it actually sucks you farther, or at least for me.
Yeah.
That scene is so crazy because you see the edges of the film, and it's super distorted except for his face.
Yeah.
Everything else gets
it's around his eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it just, I don't know how to explain it or whatnot, but his monologue on that part is so quick. But it's so it's a pretty impactful, quick monologue.
Yeah.
And then to top it off with the distortion and the shakiness and the film, to me it just adds to what he just said to you, where you're like,
right.
Okay, I need to... Maybe I should get off my ass.
Yeah. Yeah, he's basically jumping off the screen at you. It's crazy for a non-3D movie.
You know, it's great. I can't remember. I think I've said that, Seven is my all-time favorite David Fincher movie, and it's definitely up there.
Yeah.
But Fight Club, there's just something unique. I mean, there is no other movie like Fight Club. There's no other movie that Fincher has done that I feel hits as heavy as Fight Club does.
Right.
You know, I remember getting my dad to watch it, and when it ended, I was like, so what'd you think, Dad? And my dad, whenever he loves a movie, he's always like, that was all right. That's just his way.
Yeah.
Or if he hates a movie, he'll just kind of shake his head and be like, no. Right?
Yeah.
He watches Fight Club, and I'm like, so what'd you think, Dad? Crazy movie, right? And he goes, that movie is psychotic. And that, to this day, that is his only explanation of Fight Club.
They should put it on a poster.
He just leaves it at that. Just, that film is psychotic.
Yeah.
That's the end of it. So, I know he enjoyed it, but it's not one that he's like, I can rewatch that a lot.
Yeah.
Which to me almost is perfect because it had to have hit my dad just right, or just like unsettled him just the right amount that he's like, I got it.
Yeah. I liked it, but I don't want to feel that all the time.
Right. But it really, I mean, I love David Fincher films. I'm excited whenever he's directing stuff. Even if I think sometimes he gets caught up in the meticulousness of mundane things. But there, I mean, Fight Club is like, man, this is such a... it's one of those movies where you can't help but think, if I ever got to be a director, make a film, I would hope my film has that kind of weight to it.
Yeah.
Like Fight Club. Because Fight Club's very influential.
Yeah,
just
I'm the kind of person...
alone.
I'm certainly the kind of person that would really probably try too hard to apply so much meaning and depth and layer it, and it would turn out like crap. That's what I like about it. It does kind of stand out in Fincher's library as one of the most diverse movies. Like, it has nice parts and light parts and super gross parts and super dark parts, and it's just a really wild ass movie.
Well, I know it's fine. I had to laugh at myself this week watching it. So, I know during our Golden Globe episode and our Oscar episode, my biggest complaint that I had said about, oh my God, Promising Young Woman. Was that it never felt like it knew what genre it was, and that kind of bothered me.
Yeah.
I had to laugh at myself because I'm watching Fight Club, and I'm like, how do you what genre do you actually put this film under? Because it fits under, like, all of them except for horror.
Yeah.
You know, like, but there's a difference.
It's also pretty scary. It's scary, not like in like a murderer kind of way, but in like
it's scary.
Like this is a situation I don't want to catch myself in.
Yeah, it becomes frightening when the excessiveness of obsession shows up, and that I mean that's like the escalation of obsession. I mean,
right?
And we mentioned it earlier of like, there's at no point in the movie do you ever feel like that's where it's going to go. You literally wake up with the narrator and Project Mayhem exists. And you're like, how the fuck did we get here?
Yeah. Tyler's gone and the whole house is just kind of working like a machine.
It's like a compound almost. It's very... it's... like, in death, we get names. That part freaks me out every time. It's the like...
Every time they're repeating his name, Robert Paulson.
Yeah,
Robert
you're
Paulson.
just like, it's
I'm
very...
like, oh my God.
Culty. And you're...
Yeah.
But it's not... I think during that sequence when Tyler leaves and the Project Mayhem's running as it is, very culty, militarized cult kind of.
Yeah.
I feel like that alone, the fact that Tyler is no longer around during that part, there's something there to me that's like very important. There's something very meaningful with that specific timing. And I don't know if that's because Tyler Durden himself is like, okay, they've taken it too far. But then he shows back up and you're like, no, you're still all for this. So what the fuck? And I'm still trying to figure out, how do I personally feel about Tyler vanishing for that little bit of time?
Yeah.
How do you take that? Or is that something that you have focused on?
I take it as everything that Tyler does and has done is with an overall goal in mind.
Yeah.
And I think that he leaves the narrator to discover kind of all that stuff and try to figure it out and make peace with it, because it's the next step. Because he needs the narrator to realize kind of where he's at and that they're connected and accepted and grow with it. Just like he needed the first night of Fight Club, he needs everybody to understand how important the first rule is, because it's also the second rule, but he also needs them to get okay with breaking the most important rules of society, so they need to start with the first rules of the club. And yeah, so I take it as he just kind of leaves until he figures it out. And he's like, hey, you figured it out, on to the next step of the plan.
That makes sense. Yeah, I'm constantly like, is this Tyler's way of forcing the narrator to connect dots finally?
Yeah.
I think the just the sudden time loss from like the narrator wakes up and like, what the fuck is going on is almost, I think that has always thrown me a little bit, but it does make sense as that would be Tyler telling him or showing and forcing him to be like, you got to connect some dots now. Like you've fallen behind, time to connect these and then we'll catch up.
Yeah. He's not really needed to be leading these people. They're kind of just humming away like a machine. They can just continue. And so he needs to move on to the next step, basically. Which
is funny to me because the whole thing in the house with like the Project Mayhem folk, although they're rebelling against society norms during that whole sequence or rules, to me they've kind of paralleled the exact same stuff, where now they're like, this mentality has consumed them completely and now it owns them. So it's kind of, to me it's kind of a funny like, oh man, so we're just being shown like, hey, when you go too far one way, it's bad.
Right. That's part of my whole like conflict with Fight Club, is that I really want it to have like one clear message, one like for Tyler Durden to be one idealistic like moral of the story kind of person, and he's so hypocritical and the whole movie is so hypocritical that you're kind of left with, he's like, don't be conformist, don't be materialistic, don't be part of society, be individual. And then he makes this whole unit of fraternity of guys who he breaks into being so uniform, and it's like, and then they essentially become these drones or worker bees or whatever.
Yeah, it's just the opposite version of what commercialism and materialism, but now it's like a
and they are following all the rules. They're repeating them constantly. You're not allowed to ask questions. Like, you have to follow the line.
You know, narrator's making his tour of trying to find Tyler, and the bartender is like, is this a test, sir? And he's like, it's not a fucking test. And he's got to ask him, like, are you sure it's not a test, sir? It's kind of funny that Tyler has created this organism, this machine that everyone's like suddenly so afraid to step out of the rule,
right?
Which goes against everything that Fight Club was originally set up for. So if you go to watch Fight Club for one message or one like, here's the moral of the story,
right,
you're not getting one. You're gonna get a whole bunch, which actually I had to write down. I didn't write actual notes for this movie. I just wrote because I couldn't write just specific notes. I'm like,
my notes are all over the place.
But I ended up just kind of like questions, and one of them I'll propose to you. We can worry about answering them at the end or whatever. Is Fight Club a movie? And I think you and I already somewhat answered it, but we'll see. Is Fight Club the kind of movie that has like clear, here's what it's about, or is it the kind of film that you have to make it whatever, like it'll mean different to something different to everybody who watches it?
I think, just off the top of my head, I think that like all great art, it is basically whatever you want it to be. Like you can get a lot of different things out of it, and that's because it's so deep and so layered. I think that the if you compartmentalize it and say the main story, what is the main story about? I think you can get a lot of specific details about that, and it's not even always exactly what you're shown and what's on screen. There are so many fan theories about Fight Club. It's kind of ridiculous. Some of them are really dumb and some of them are really smart, but so I think that you can find a lot of meaning in it in that sense.
Yeah.
But I think as an overall, like, what's the message or what's the moral and what does this art mean or how should I feel? I think that you can get a lot of different things out of it, and it kind of depends on. It kind of changes throughout the movie. If you watch this part, I feel this way about it, and I like this message, and this is good. I'll gravitate to that. But that by the end of that movie, that message is totally gone, not part of the movie. Who cares about that?
Well, and the whole ending of the film, and yeah, we're gonna keep jumping around. We can't avoid the ending, so we're just gonna come to that.
The ending's a big deal.
The ending is one of the most like morally challenging endings for me.
Yeah.
Because of the actions that Project Mayhem has taken.
Because they broke the rules?
Well, no, because they're basically performing terrorism at the end of the film.
Right.
But I get the metaphor for all of it, but it's such a like weird place to put the viewer in.
Yeah.
You're just like, I actually don't know if I should be celebrating this ending or if I should be horrified by this ending.
Yeah. And I've actually heard or read that that's a criticism of Fight Club, in that it's not, if you want Fight Club to be a satire on society or whatever, the narrator and the way you connect to him is too good. It's like too personal. You relate to him too much. You like him too much. And so by the end of the movie, he can kind of do no wrong. You're kind of on his side already. And so if that's supposed to be a message about like a cautionary tale or whatever, don't do these things.
Right.
That doesn't really come across. You kind of are like, oh, should I agree with this? Or is he right? Because I liked him for the most, like pretty much all the movie. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying.
It puts you in such an odd place. But I think what helps with it is them breaking the fourth wall throughout the entire film. The meta aspect of the film, the constant reminder, this is a movie. This is not real life.
Right.
Everything we're showing you is a metaphor. Don't actually do this, people. But
don't actually blow up buildings.
Right.
Yeah. It's also weird that it just slowly escalates, kind of like breaking the rules in the club, where at first it's just pranks. It's just little pieces of homework. Get in a fight with this guy or go knock over this statue. It's like just little pranks, and then it builds up to blowing up this building.
Blowing up
a series of buildings.
Super commercialized areas. Especially, I love that they never name them. Mm-hmm. And the coffee shop that gets blown up at the end, destroyed at the end, is not like the actual Starbucks.
Yeah.
But there's a Starbucks cup apparently visible in every frame of the movie. Now,
what?
Yes.
Really?
I have watched this film so many fucking times. And there are scenes in it, I'm like, there is no cup in this part. There is no Starbucks cup here.
Yeah.
Like, everyone, especially Fincher, that made this movie are all very much like, oh no, Starbucks is in every scene of this film.
Interesting.
Like, one of their cups.
Yeah.
I can't find them all. It bothers me every time. Like, I need to find all these. But I think that's such a...
it.
Yeah.
Turning up the contrast on your TV.
I love that little bit of, like, subliminal imagery. Is, the film has a very heavy anti-commercial or, like, overly commercialism kind of moral or whatever. Lost what I was saying.
Metaphor.
No, thank you. And I love that they you're being just force fed Starbucks, which is like one of the poster childs of commercialism.
It's on every corner. It's constantly everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's funny that instead of acknowledging that the stuff is everywhere, it's just there, and then Tyler tells us, like, oh yeah, we're going to go and destroy a highly popular commercialized coffee shop.
Yeah.
Like, they serve overpriced lattes. I wonder who he is talking about.
Yeah, there's only one name that anybody knows for that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna change the topic, so if you want to finish your thought. So, probably everybody knows. The movie explains to you and tells you flat out Tyler Durden and the narrator are the same person.
Right.
He has split personalities. Tyler's just one of those personalities he's kind of fights with himself. He's orchestrated all this stuff. How many other people in the movie do you think is also one of his personalities? Have you never heard this? Because I have one specifically I am confident in.
Okay.
And then it made me start Googling, and I did some Googling, and there seems to be a very wide variety of theories about who else and what else could be imaginary.
Well, this is an interesting question. And I feel like I may have kind of answered it at the very start of this little discussion.
Yeah.
With none of the characters have names.
Yeah.
I kind of can't help but feel that the majority of the members...
everybody.
Not everybody. Not
Okay.
everybody. Like, I don't think Leto's character is one of his personalities.
Not Bob.
I don't think Bob is.
He's the only one with the last name, I believe, besides Tyler Durden.
I feel like, well, maybe that would be why he would be being the only one with a full name. But I don't know. I don't think Bob is.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, like, Tyler doesn't show up. Well, Tyler shows up just before he joins the support groups, and the narrator hasn't, like, fully mentally broken at that point. He's just really close to doing it.
Yeah.
And I think the support group, everyone in the support groups, I feel are real people, starting with Bob. I think Bob is real. I think the one of the head leaders in Project Mayhem, he's the one that names Robert Paulson, that he's like,
yeah,
oh, I get it. In death, we get our names. I think he could be one of the personalities.
I think he's the guy. He's the older detective in Mindhunter. I forget the actress name.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You might be right. But I definitely feel like, especially with the scene where Tyler says, ooh, there's a lot of new faces out here, which means people are breaking the first two rules of Fight Club. I feel like that is such a telling, look at all of these personalities.
Yeah.
Like, the narrator has totally shattered at this point.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah, so I kind of feel not all of the fighters, but a good chunk of them are other personalities.
Okay. You skirted the one name that I was looking for.
Uh-oh.
Which is Marla Singer.
No, I don't think she's a personality.
You don't think she is?
No, I don't.
I kind of really do, the more I watch it. She falls into the same bucket as Tyler. I think that her and Tyler have the biggest argument for being the same person.
Okay.
Which is nobody else talks to her, really. It's only the narrator that talks to her. Tyler doesn't even talk to her. Tyler has sex with her, but I think that she could certainly be another personality of the narrator that is just kind of the opposite, or the feminine side, or whatever. And I think that I like her. I do really like the story of Fight Club with her as a real person, because it makes it extremely interesting when the narrator's talking to her about like Tyler, and she comes downstairs after they had first had sex, and the way she talks to him after you've seen it the first time, and you know that oh, the narrator just had sex with her.
right.
She's very much like, yeah, we just had sex, and he's like, and he's so cold and shut off and a different person. So I think that's interesting, but I think that it can also be more instead. She is one of his personalities. She is, I don't know, there's a lot of things, and if you do some Googling, you will also see some things. There's actually also an interesting website, I think it's called jackdurden.com.
Okay.
And he goes through several different theories. Some of them are a little weird and silly, so like down to, and they're very interesting ones too. Like the house that they all live in doesn't exist either. Like the frustrating thing about Fight Club is, and it's frustrating to talk about as well as watch, is that you could explain a lot of it by it doesn't exist. These people, this person doesn't exist, or they exist, but they're not like physical people. The house itself is not a real house. It's a representation of how how complicated and like broken and dilapidated his mind is. The group is like that. The security guards could be that. Like I've read things about like how the security guards represent his insecurities.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of like weird scenes with them. So yeah, it's hard to know. I think everybody knows the obvious one, but it's more interesting to watch it from a new perspective, which is,
right,
is this person even real? Who is talking to them?
Well, I feel like with Marla, whether she's real or not would not change my opinion on how I feel about like the movie and the story, or the journey that the narrator goes on.
Yeah.
But I almost feel like if she was a personality, that would almost be too convenient and too obvious. And for that reason, mainly, at least at the moment, I would say that would be my biggest argument to no, she's real.
Yeah.
I almost feel like her character, as eccentric and broken as she is herself, I feel like she's kind of the character that is supposed to be kind of grounding.
Wesley.
Good job, Wesley. She should be the one that's like actually grounding the narrator, because he rejects her right out the gate when he first meets her. And I feel like, what kind of a story would he have had if he would have stuck with her? Could they have kind of grounded each other out without all of the insanity? I think they still would have experienced crazy times. I mean, she tries to kill herself at one point.
Right.
But I feel she's real, and in an unconventional way.
Yeah.
She would be the one that keeps him grounded. And I think that's kind of like the significance of... I also think she's real because she does interact with some of the members from Project Mayhem when they force her upstairs to meet the narrator. Right.
Unless Project Mayhem is also not.
Unless Project Mayhem. But I feel like Fight Club... and we're not going to go on a 6-hour rabbit hole here.
Yet.
I feel like Fight Club does present that rabbit hole pretty well, though. And pretty almost mockingly.
Yeah.
Of like, is anything you're watching happening? Or...
Yeah. It's so like set up for it that I wonder if that's most of the point.
Yeah.
That it certainly could be, that could be the overall takeaway or overall message. I think that what you described as what you like about the story and what it means, you could get most of that same thing if she wasn't real. I mean, she's real in the sense that Tyler's real, and he has that whole experience and evolution through his interaction with Tyler. He could have a more wholesome or grounding experience with Marla, even if she's just a personality of his. Yeah. I mean, they describe how she doesn't go to the like the gatherings or support groups anymore. As soon as he stops going, she's like, "You're not going, so I'm not going." And that's all they explain about.
Yeah, I don't think it would change my opinion on the film if she was real or not.
It's kind of like, I mean, I like both. I like both. It's kind of like having the ability to have two different movies at the same time. I like the ending where she's a real person who has accepted him for his faults, and it's kind of beautiful how it ends, and they are there together, and except this building collapsing. Right. And it's also, I like how dark it is, where thinks he's there, like holding her hand, but he's actually there alone, living his life alone, and none of this is actually real. So it's I like both versions.
I do. I think that's such a great thing how I take the film, especially the ending. You know, it's got one of my favorite final lines ever, where he's like, "You've met me at a very interesting point in my life." I love that line so much, especially the timing of it, because you got everything blowing up around him, and there's that silhouette shot of them, the camera's panning away. You've got the Pixies' "Where Is My Mind" playing, which is almost as meta as you can get with this film. But I love that line. I love just the way everything concludes, because to me it's very much like he's kind of making peace with not being perfect and kind of being okay with chaos. And because when we meet him, he's got insomnia, he's miserable, and he's super IKEA friendly.
He's controlling of his life. He feels like he needs to collect all this decor and outfits, and
because he has to meet a certain standard that he thinks society has for him, when that's, it just doesn't exist. So I take her as real. I like that a little more, just because I think her being there with him as he's forced to just accept chaos, I think that's really telling. And I really like the idea that Fincher and the author's name,
Chuck Palahniuk,
thank you, created this character, because usually a supporting character that's supposed to be there to inspire or ground someone, they're always like, "Oh no, you're free spirited, but in a very healthy way." And I really like that Marla would be, she's this broken, she's got
unhealthy
a whole bunch of
max.
shit, but she would be the grounding support system for the narrator. I personally like that a lot. I think that's very telling, because she is chaos embodiment. But if she's not real, it still works out. At least he's got a nice personality with him.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's interesting and telling that you describe the ending as him accepting chaos. That is Tyler's goal. Tyler achieved his goal, which is to break the narrator out of his rut. And the whole thing starts when he blows up the narrator's apartment, and all of his possessions that he'd been collecting, he was so close to having the total, complete set. And now it's all gone. And once he loses all of his, possessions, then he's finally able to see the world and learn to accept chaos, learn to find what matters, find meaning in life. And he kind of does it in the end.
I take it as he does it. I really do. That's my takeaway from it. And to me, it's almost inspirational, even though yes, it's still very morally compromising. But if you're going strict metaphor, which I think you have to with this film,
it's basically a happy ending.
It really is. It might be one of the happiest endings, as long as you take it purely on the metaphor. At least how I take it, of maybe it's healthier not to have everything in control. maybe that's how all of us need to just experience life is literally, hey, shit happens. You got to just, what are you going to do next? What are you going to do about that? You know?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know how I can't remember how we got onto that, but yeah. Marla being
Marla
real
is
or not.
fake.
Yeah.
She's a personality.
What do you think about what I said with, like, maybe most of the fighters are other personalities? How do you take?
I think that's plausible. I mean, I'm like much of this movie, I'm conflicted with it because I really like the idea of people just hearing about it, showing up, seeing them in the parking lot, and being like, "Hey, man, I could really use this. Like, this seems like something that will help my life or fill my hole or whatever." And so I can totally see these guys in their khaki pants showing up and like, I just need to fight something, and finding meaning in that. At the same time, it's very plausibly could be that they are all other personalities. I think that it could certainly be, even if some of the fighters are real, or maybe none of the fighters are real, who knows. But I do think a lot of maybe of the stuff that Project Mayhem does, those people could be personalities. I think that maybe the rules or the steps to get into the Project Mayhem house, where they have to stay on the porch and for 3 days or whatever, and he's trying to get them to follow the rules, or I guess break the rules, where he's telling them to go home but they're supposed to stay. All of that could be kind of sussing out or finding the most malleable personalities that he has, the most kind of benign or subservient personalities that would work well in this system.
Right.
That he could have other personalities that are a little more headstrong that just wouldn't work, and so they get shown the door. And then he has all of these minion personalities that he can like have work with. So it could very well be that nobody really is real except maybe his boss. I think his boss is real.
I'm pretty positive the boss is real.
Yeah. Which boss fight is so cool.
But that's that rabbit hole, that this movie happily presents you with is...
Yeah, it sucks you down like Alice.
What events in the narrator's life are actually happening, and does the narrator actually think they are? Because then you could also go, well, he's breaking the fourth wall when he narrates like Tyler's background and talking right to you, telling you how a movie works.
Yeah. Yeah, very true.
The movie the rabbit holes for Fight Club are, I feel, never ending.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah. And you could go so deep as to say, does he know subconsciously even earlier that they're the same? Because the narrator has very specific lines that telegraph the twist. He says things like, I know this because Tyler knows this. And so there's so many parts where you're like, after you've seen it, you're like, yeah, obviously I should have seen this coming.
One of the most obvious tells. Whoa.
Apparently Christy got home.
Oh. One of the most obvious tells in the whole film is the narrator on the people mover at the airport.
Yeah.
And his narration is, could you go to sleep one person and wake up another? And the camera focuses on Tyler and goes the other way with him.
Oh,
the other people mover. To me, it's like, that's the most... They just told you. They just showed you.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that about that scene. I also feel it about when you get to the point where Tyler blows up his apartment. That comes after Tyler's on the plane with him. He tells him about how he makes soap, but you would be surprised all the explosives you can make with household objects.
Right.
The scene right after... Yeah, the scene right after that, the narrator gets, like, his luggage doesn't show up because it was vibrating, and he goes to security, and security's talking about how there's probably a bomb in his bag. And then the very next scene, he shows up to his apartment, it's on fire, it had been blown out. I'm like, yeah, Tyler just blew up your house. It's so obvious at the very beginning, and then they don't tell you until the very beginning of the third act.
Right. Dude, that whole sequence at the airport where the security guard is like, 9 times out of 10 it turns out to be a dildo, but it's never your dildo, it's a dildo.
Yeah.
I don't own a dildo. I didn't say you own a dildo.
Other thing about Marla, I've seen people say, so when he gets off the plane, there's like this big, like, duct tape, like, brown cardboard box that's like Tyler's luggage is at the airport, and then people say that Tyler left without his luggage. The narrator passes Tyler's luggage, but he had packed Marla's luggage, and Marla has a dildo, and
she does have a dildo. In fact, Tyler hits it's one of the funniest details. Tyler like elbows the dresser to get the dildo to flop around. Have you ever noticed that?
Yeah.
I don't know why, but it makes me laugh every time because he just like looks at it and just boom. I'm like, that might be one of the most guy things. We would not be able to not make it do that, or we would use it as a sword or something. It's silly and stupid.
Yeah, Tyler is like the funniest guy. Like, the way he does things and the way he says things, and his laugh. Like, when he laughs,
his laugh is awesome.
It's on the level of, like, Joker laugh. It's so unnerving. And I don't know why. He does it, like, I think twice, and it's always so uncomfortable when he's laughing.
Well, the first time he really does it is as he's getting his face beat in by the owner of the bar, and he just keeps laughing at him, and then starts spitting his blood on him. He's like, you don't know where I've been! You don't know where I've been! Gross.
Yeah.
But his laugh is like... It's almost how... You said it really well. It's almost a Joker style. It's very maniacal. It's very like... Is he just laughing at, like... Because he laughs that way? Or is this... all part of a plot, of course.
Is it put on?
It's Tyler. So
yeah. No, that's true.
Well, I told you I had the movie playing. The narrator's walking through Project Mayhem right now.
That's amazing.
I lost my train of thought with that. I shouldn't have looked up.
I told you that was going to happen.
Damn it. Tyler, could you imagine anyone else playing Tyler Durden other than Brad Pitt?
No, I don't think so. He's a really perfect balance of disarmingly handsome and charismatic and dark and deceitful and scary.
Right. And super immature. Like, all the little silly, dumb things that he does, I feel only Brad Pitt... there's just something about Brad Pitt in this role that reminds you, like... Yeah, people gush over him because he's, like, crazy handsome. Sure. Brad Pitt really is a good-looking dude.
Shredded. Yeah.
He is. Yeah. Have you noticed he's the Gucci model that Norton points out?
Yeah. And he's like, I love that scene so much when he puts it off. He's like, oh, yeah, gross. Who would do that?
Right. And then you see him shirtless the next scene and it's him.
Yeah.
I feel like Brad Pitt, I don't think he gets enough credit for, like, the silliness that he's able to pull off so well in all of his roles.
Yeah.
That kind of immaturity that he's able to showcase really well. And I think him as Tyler is so great. I mentioned it earlier, but I love him riding the little tricycle around the house and crashing it.
Yeah.
All the little oddities that he does. Him using the nunchucks in the background and just whipping random things in his bedroom. I'm like,
yeah.
Yeah,
the very end when they're like in the parking structure and he's like doing the karate moves.
Right.
It's like he just is being cool. I mean, he's kind of in a state of arrested development. He's it's an interesting. He does that character so well. I couldn't see really anybody else do it.
Yeah, I really can't imagine. I think Fight Club is one of those movies where I really hope that down the line or down the road, Hollywood doesn't get this like that dumbass thought process of, oh, we should remake that for a new generation, because like, you will never pull it off. This movie is perfect. Do not remake it. You can't recast this. Like, you just can't.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, and it was perfectly in 1999. It was perfectly coming out of the grunge era, going into the early 2000s. It was like Starbucks is popping up. Like everything was kind of transitioning to these grungy anarchist like teens are now becoming millennial, like corporate white collar depressed people. And now here's a movie for you.
right. Get a load of this.
Yeah, I'm sure if they remade it, I would hate a Gen Z version. Or
I don't even think
next.
I would bother watching it.
Yeah,
I don't know that I could, because it's such a unique story, and it's, I mean, the amount of layering in it, the rabbit holes, all of that's so important to this movie.
Yeah.
That I feel if you tried to remake it, I mean, you joked that if you were making a film, you'd probably get caught up in trying to like be so deep and have so many layers that it would just become kind of like a cluster. I think that would be Hollywood in general now, if they even got the itch to remake it. Because there's just, sometimes we get these movies where it's perfect right out of the gate and you don't mess with it. Don't touch it.
Yeah, I can't say I've seen a movie that has this many layers in a long time. I can't think of any, really.
I was taking a drink, sorry.
That's all good. Yeah, I like a big part of. I love the first half of it so much because I do gravitate and connect. At least at this point in my life, I could gravitate and connect with the concept of the Fight Club and why people like it, and the trying to find truth, trying to find reality, rejecting materialism, kind of what is that? And I think so much of that part of the movie is about not just like, we talked a little bit about toxic masculinity, but mostly about how society is toxic, and it kind of necessitates weakness, where the more ingrained society is and the bigger society is, the weaker people are, because this problem is not your problem, it's somebody else's problem now. You don't have to take care of that. You don't have to know where food comes from. You don't have to do anything. Everything is so comfortable. Yeah. And the more comfortable it is, the weaker you get over time. And so these people are kind of trying to get out of that, trying to find pain and use the pain to grow. And I think that's exciting and interesting and beautiful, and there's truth in that, like we were saying.
Oh, I agree. It's so weird for me because there's so many parts. I definitely gravitate towards like my take of the film of trying to make peace with chaos, it's okay not to be okay kind of thing, and you don't need all this stuff. I mean, I'm a huge offender of materialism. I'm not going to hide from it.
As you hold the Tyler Durden pop vinyl right now.
I've got all this shit. You don't even see the rest. But,
yeah.
And I've said it to you. I've said it to a lot of people. Like, I definitely, the things that I own, and Tyler Durden would be so mad at me, but well, maybe not mad. He would just be like, yeah, you should stop this. But I've definitely allowed the things that I own to own me. And so rewatching Fight Club is constantly a like gut check for me. It's constantly a like, okay, maybe I should go experience something different real quick.
Yeah, and I think the move is important for that. I think it's good to not be extreme in either direction. You mentioned this earlier. Life is generally about balance, and you can have these things and enjoy these things. You can have Fight Club on DVD and watch it and think it's great to own it, and have posters and have whatever about Fight Club. But once you get to the point of your possessions are owning you, and you're devastated if you lose anything, and you're so attached to them, then that is unhealthy in that end of the spectrum. So it's good to find that balance. And I think that's ultimately that message.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it's funny because every time I watch it, I'm like, I'm not fucking buying anything except necessities for a while. I just can't do it.
And I see that sort of thing a lot, where sometimes you need extremes, especially if you're living in one extreme. If you're living in the extreme material side, you need a movie that gives you the extreme of you don't need anything, you need nothing. To kind of get you towards the middle a little more.
Right.
It's you're not going to go all the way, but it does help you kind of get towards the middle.
I'm gonna turn a light on real quick. The sun's setting out here, so it's like getting dark.
You don't want to get scared of the dark?
No, I keep seeing my screen getting progressively darker, except for the light.
Sounds good. 6.
Okay. Yeah, see, that's a little better.
There you are.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I feel not only does Tyler Durden need to be considered, or should be considered, like one of the most influential, important characters, because I kind of can't help but feel that all of us need a Tyler Durden in our lives. not saying create a split personality, but we need that person or whatever to kind of push us.
Yeah.
To get out of our routines, to be okay with not having
some kind of outside force.
Yeah. I really feel like he's just I get why Project Mayhem, if it's real, in the movie, would be so devoted to him.
Yeah,
I get it. I really get it. 'Cause I'm like, I could almost see that happening. Not only, I think I would have some rebellion to it, but that would almost be the encouragement for that kind of character.
Yeah, right.
But I feel like, I mean, no offense, man, but I feel like you would fall right. You and Christy would both be like, "Yeah, we're on board right from the get-go."
Yeah, it's that's another like conflicting thing, because it's like, hey, yeah, anarchy sounds great, but then as soon as you get to the part where it flips, if it never flipped, if he didn't become this dictator that was like, you can't ask questions, you need to fall in line, then I'd be all over it. But as soon as that happens, and maybe that's one small complaint I have, is that everybody gets sucked in so quickly, and they get they're completely like mindless drones. They're just believers in Tyler the Messiah, basically, so quickly, without asking any questions. If there was any like longer progression there, then I'd probably be like, okay, yeah, totally, I understand how you fell into that. But it's happened so fast that I'm like, no, I'm out. I don't believe in you anymore.
You know, it's funny. We've mentioned it numerous times now of the like how fast the transition actually is from Fight Club to Project Mayhem.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost so fast that there's no transition. It really does just go from like group of dudes beating the shit out of each other. We're in a house plotting against commercialism.
Right.
Which
And I do think that's by design, because the narrator's character is kind of blindsided like the viewers are, where he just kind of wakes up and he's like, how did we get here? He talks to Tyler about it. He's like, why didn't you ask me about it? Why didn't you like consult me? He's like, you were involved in the beginning. The beginning was Fight Club. We did all that. That's over. Now we're here. We're doing this.
Yeah. I kind of feel like you could compare that kind of transition to like addiction in general, of how quick it can escalate and how there really is no definable transition from any kind of addiction, really. I mean, you find
just
yourself
all of a sudden you're in it.
Yeah, you enjoy doing something, it gives you a little bit of euphoria, whatever it is, and then without you really realizing it, you are so caught up into it and just accepting whatever is around you, because you're going for whatever that euphoria is. You're constantly trying to find that release again. That's how I take the zero trans, and I didn't catch on to that, or at least form that opinion until I watched the movie as like an adult. Then I started, this feels very, and I don't know if that was the intention, but that's my interpretation of how the flow of the movie goes, is addiction in general.
I never really thought about that, but as you say that, and the more I think about it, the whole movie could essentially be, at least in part, about addiction and what that's like. The whole first part of it is he's going to these support groups, and it's his addiction, this like kindness and acceptance and crying and love, and he's addicted to that. And you watch the movie for like 15 minutes. He describes all these different groups he goes to, and then he tells Marla, I've been doing this for a year. Like, before you know it, a year's gone by. And so he's just like in it. This is what he does now. And I think there are probably a lot of things like that, and like what you just described, where addiction is like that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Which, just another layer. I mean, that's how I interpret it.
Yeah.
Which to me adds more layers to it, because then, I mean, if you've ever had really any kind of addiction in your life, for me, when I watch it, there's a lot of moments in it that I'm like, ooh, like, it's just so real. It's so, you said it earlier that you identify with the narrator pretty heavily and right out of the gate. I mean, you meet him and you're like, oh yeah, this is me. Especially as an adult, especially like late 20s, early 30s, you're like, yep, this is my life. I feel like him. I don't sleep well. It's a cookie cutter job for the most part. You know, it's
every day's the same.
There's
toiling towards getting stuff that I don't actually care about.
Right.
You're just checking boxes. I need to graduate college. I need to buy a house. I need to get married. I need to have kids.
Yeah,
that's a thing.
You follow what you feel is society's expectations or norms, and that's
right.
I mean, that's all fabricated in our own minds. It's
right.
Layer.
You don't have to. You can do whatever you want. Yeah, it's also really interesting. I'm thinking more about this addiction angle.
Yeah.
I haven't been around addiction that much, and I don't know that many people who have, but I have heard people who are in it described as having multiple personalities. Like, you can be one way, and then all of a sudden you just switch and you snap and you're another way. You're all of a sudden you're angry, you're grouchy, you need this thing. And being Fight Club, being a movie about multiple personalities or split personalities or whatever, I think that translates to how addiction behavior is and how people who are around that perceive it and that kind of thing.
Well, I'm glad that I got your brain really...
Yeah, I had never thought of that, but it is so interesting. I think that's a huge layer.
To me, I asked you the question earlier of, like, do you think Fight Club is one of those movies that the general audience can get, like, just a couple basic kind of, like, here's what it's about out of, or is it really subjective to every viewer? I think in a way we've kind of it's got some things that general audiences are going to pick up on, but you as a viewer are probably going to have your own, like how it affects you or what it makes you think of or consider in your own life. It definitely does that to me. It's a movie where, like, I love this film, but I don't watch it all the time because to me it's such a, like, combative movie or confrontational. That's the word I'm looking for.
Struggle to watch.
It might be the most confrontational film.
Yeah.
That's not like a family film where it's like you know, we said it during the family episode of typically in a family movie their lesson is going to be, hey, grown-ups, quit taking everything so serious, go enjoy life in your family. Fight Club is kind of like, hey, society, quit being a piece of shit. Stop thinking that you need this perfect structure.
Right.
Like,
embrace the chaos.
I don't think I can do that because as adults we're so invested into our routines that it just I feel Fight Club's one of the most confrontational films ever. Yeah. And it's kind of in the title.
No, I think it's extremely true. It's about fighting. It's about not just a fight club, but fighting society. That's a huge part of it. But I think I've inadvertently described the same thing where I said I have a huge conflict with this movie where I like this, I don't like this, I like this meaning, I don't like this meaning. What does this mean? How do I combine them? How do I make them clean and nice and neat, like most movies do? I think Fight Club does a good job of describing for general audiences, people that are kind of paying attention or seeing it for the first time or not into too deep movies. It does a good job of explaining, here's everything you need to know, here's enough message or enough twist, here's the twist. We explain it well enough that you're probably not going to miss it. But there's so much more after that, and once you know that, it opens it up. And I don't watch it that often because when I do watch it, I'm like, but what did he mean by that? And if he said that, then does that mean that this happened the way that it did, or does it mean the complete opposite?
Well, and that's why I feel like depending on when you watch this movie might affect how you feel about the movie, whether you enjoy it or not. I think as teenager, you don't really catch on to the layers. I didn't as a teenager. I just watched it and thought, oh man, this is a crazy movie about, like, this guy's got split personality and everything went insane. Yeah. Like not right out of the gate, but pretty quick. As an adult, I watch it and I'm like, fuck, is this what, like, my brain looks like constantly?
Yeah. Exactly.
I don't know if I like that, but I love this movie.
It's like holding up a mirror to society and holding up a mirror to myself, and I'm like, oh, I don't know.
Right, you're like oh shit, what have I done?
I think that the timing that you watch it matters so much, and just your personal experience, you bring that to what you get out of it. I initially was in a lot of ways turned off, and I think probably a lot of people are turned off from it because a lot of it is gross. Like the house is gross and disgusting and dilapidated. Toilets are gross. The condoms in the toilet are gross. The fat that they suck out of people and make soap out of is gross.
That they steal out of the dumpsters.
The sex is gross. The nudity, there's barely any nudity, and there's hardly any sex. But it's not like sexy sex. It's like, oh, this is real life gross sex.
It's like weird acid trip CGI.
Yeah, there's that's
with
like
that weird, like
360 scene.
The one scene that's in it.
There's that.
Yeah.
And then, like, the violence is, there's not that much violence. There's hardly any violence, but the violence in it is very visceral and real, and it reminds me a lot of, like, noir movies where when he, like, punches him in the stomach or punches him in the face, it's not like an action movie. It's like, oh, that's probably real. That's probably, like, what it would be like, and that sucks.
Well, What's funny about you saying that? Edward Norton punching Brad Pitt in the face, or in the ear, more specifically, was real. That what David Fincher told Norton, actually punch him, and Norton actually mistimed his punch, or misaimed his punch. So that is
That's
real.
Amazing. I love Tyler's reaction, where he's like, the ear? Really? The ear?
Yeah, so that was actually Brad Pitt's reaction of like, you punched the fucking ear, man.
But
Why
then he
would you do
works
that?
with it. He's
I
like,
think that
no,
was
that's actually perfect. That's exactly what I wanted you to punch, like, because it's messy and it's real and it hurts. And here's my punch in your stomach.
Well, that's in terms of like movie fight scenes. The Fight Club fights feel real. They feel, I mean, they're the least stylized. They're very bare knuckle. It feels like, I mean, when you hear their skin hit the concrete or each other, you're like, that sounded real. I know it wasn't, but that, like, it affects you. You flinch at some of those hits. When you see their faces get smashed into the ground and it lifts and you see the blood, like, pour out of their eyes. So you're like,
come out of their mouth, or when they pull a tooth out that's loose.
It feels, I mean, there's a crazy realism to the movie. And trying to, like, man, the makeup artist for this film should have gotten way more like recognition than they did, because damn.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, violence-wise, it's really not... I mean, it has violence.
Right.
But it's not... It's not the kind of violence that I think general audiences are used to seeing in a film.
Yeah. Or would expect with the title called Fight Club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even the fights, they're quick.
Right.
They don't go on for a long time. It's like... what, 15 seconds tops per fight?
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe? They're pretty quick.
They're not focused on, it's more like, here's just a thing that's going on, and we're doing it, we're liking it, but then cut to the rest of our life where we just have a black eye and everything.
Right. Bandaged up faces. Have you ever, after knowing, like, the twist of the film, when you go back and rewatch it, have you ever caught yourself during the fight sequences to be like, when they focus on Edward Norton or the narrator, watching Tyler fight, have you ever tried to think of, like, how does that work in the brain? Like, how does the brain project?
It's like an out-of-body experience.
I'm not. Yeah.
Yeah.
I constantly.
I think that a lot. I think that out constantly when I'm watching it. I'm like, okay, if they're the same person, then what does that mean? And there's, like, when they're, like, fighting with each other, or when they're talking in the car, or, like, there's a lot of things that may or may not even be real fights between them. Like, they show later in the movie where he's fighting in the parking lot and he's hitting himself by himself. But I think there are other things that may just be metaphorical, where it's just an internal struggle that he's having, where they're fighting each other. But yeah, I think it must be some sort of out-of-body experience where he's, like, astral projecting. Who knows what's going on?
Right. Like, I find myself constantly trying to just, how does that work? And then you watch other movies that are about split personalities, and they'll tell you, well, one personality can have a complete different, like... structure, like,
they go and live a full day and do their full routine. Right.
So then I'll start thinking of that, and I'm like, this is so fucking crazy. I don't know if my brain can actually, like...
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I constantly. And then there's always that scene at the end where, like, the narrator's sitting in the chair and Tyler's, like, slouching on the table holding the gun, and the narrator flat out says, like, well, if Tyler has the gun, that means I have the gun. And they do that, like, where he's holding the gun, and you're like, fuck, he's projecting all of this again. God damn it.
Yeah. After you had already told me everything that was going on, I fell back into the trap of believing that this is a story between two separate people when it's obviously not.
Right.
Yeah, it does a great job of that.
Well, what other notes did you make for Fight Club?
I'm looking through. I think I covered all the main ones.
I think it's funny.
Do you have any more?
Not really. I was just laughing that you and I, instead of just talking like deep dive into like the fun production of it and the like filmmaking tidbits of the movie, we legitimately dove into like the layers and the rabbit holes.
Yeah. This was more of a meaning dissection than an actual film dissection.
Yeah. Which we didn't do that even with Birdman. I think we did a little bit, but not near as much.
Yeah, a little bit, but yeah, I agree. Birdman was more concise, more flow through the movie, and what does this mean? There was like just a couple bits where there's that questionable stuff that you don't know exactly what that means. Fight Club is mostly questionable stuff that you don't know what that means.
I just thought maybe the whole moral of Fight Club really just boils down to the simple: if you aren't questioning, you're living incorrectly.
I love that. That makes me love it more, because my biggest problem with it is the first rule of Project Mayhem is you don't ask questions. I'm like, no, fuck that.
Right.
But if the moral of Fight Club is don't be those douchebags because that leads to problems, then I'm okay with it.
Who knows?
I like that.
I feel like if we ever had the chance to ask the author or David Fincher or Brad Pitt or Edward Norton, they'd probably tell us like, I mean, it means what you want it to mean. And I'd be like, you fucking asshole, I just need an answer.
I don't need an artsy answer. I need a real answer.
We already did a couple hours of artsy answering, okay? Come on.
Yeah. That's one of my like favorite things about art. I feel like if you did ask Chuck what's-his-face, Pachalnik or whatever, Palnik, he would probably be like, this is the meaning, this one simple thing, and I never anticipated that everybody would take it in all these different directions, and as soon as you release it, everybody sees these hidden messages. That's kind of my favorite thing, is when people start finding all the little hidden messages and dissecting it. We had that when we talked to Christian about his movie, and we're like, oh, when you did this, did it mean that? And he's like, no, that wasn't the point at all. I just threw it together, and it was what it was. And
you and I had that collective, like, so we looked a little too deep into this, but that's okay.
Yeah. It made it better, like, once you connect the dots. Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious what we missed, like what our listeners have gleaned from Fight Club, what messages that they found in it or like about it or don't like about it. So you can certainly hit us up, Facebook and Instagram.
100%. I feel like Fight Club is one of those movies where the conversation can just be endless. It can just go on and on. I know you and I, although we're a little more formal these days with our movie discussions.
Yeah.
But I feel like Fight Club is one of those where we could have been like, you talk about it for a while, you go on to some random other subject, and then all of a sudden you're like, the light bulb goes off, and you're, oh shit, I just thought about this scene. We're going back.
You know what I just remembered? Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so it's the ending, but...
You have the benefit of seeing it.
I do.
I have to remember it.
Well, and you even called this out that you're like, you're probably going to see something and it'll like... click. Okay, what do you think? It's the weirdest self-inflicted gunshot wound in a movie.
Through the neck. And he lives from it.
But through the mouth. Or boom, and it like goes out like here.
Yeah.
It's the oddest.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's just another detail that lends so much to the brutal, gritty realism. Like, I've certainly heard that happens. But that's so close to your aorta. I don't know how you don't just, like, bleed out, but it's possible.
It's such a weird... It's such a weird gunshot wound. And I'm constantly, like, focused on it when it happens.
Yeah, never seen anything like it in film.
No, because you're always used to it's, like, dead center out the back of the head if someone shoots themselves. This is, like, bottom of the jaw. Yeah. He's still talking, but he's now raspy. And, like...
Yeah.
The smoke is still coming out of it.
It's gnarly looking, for sure.
Yep. Oh, there was the penis.
Well, that's a good place to end it, probably. I'm going to put that in our snippet of phrases that come from the podcast. Well, there's the penis.
Well, there's the penis. Any other thoughts? Anything?
I don't think so. I think that I think we covered it. There's so much. I'm sure I'll remember something I meant to say as soon as it's over.
Yeah, we'll text each other and be like, how the hell did we not mention this? We've done that a handful of times now. Yeah.
We missed the actual point of Batman vs. Superman, which is that Batman fights Superman at one point.
We didn't even talk about it.
We talked about everything else.
And missed the actual fight, which is the title of the whole movie.
Yeah. But I think we talked about the fights in Fight Club.
We did.
I think we're pretty good there. But that's the benefit, I guess, of social media, is that we can post something and everybody can participate. And as soon as somebody comments, like, why didn't you talk about this? Then we can talk about it. So go to Facebook and Instagram, comment about it, let us know what you think about Fight Club. If you get it, if you don't, if you hate it, if you think that it's crazy, which it is, let us know.
Let us know if, like, you've taken any super meaningful, deep lessons, or how did I put it? Compromising moral issues, or do you feel the movie has, like, confronted you on your own shit? With whatever's going on in your life. Let us know. I mean, how
do you combine all of the hypocrisy into an actual message? Is there one? I need answers. I'm still struggling myself, so I would like your opinions.
Yeah, let us know. Join the conversation. Chat with us on all of the social medias, Instagram, Facebook, movieboners.com.
You can comment on our YouTube video if you want
make
to.
sure you subscribe to our YouTube and check it out.
Yeah, I'm sure you're sick of everybody saying it, but if they say it because it works, you need to like it, you need to comment on it, you need to subscribe to it.
Yep.
Hit the bell, whatever people do. I don't really know. I'm not a
We're still learning, God damn it.
Yeah, but they say those things because it does help, and you will show up in searches, and we want people to hear about it. So we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Help us make Project Movie Boners huge.
That's right. Yep. And I don't have any homework for you, but whatever you do, don't blow up a Starbucks.
Yeah.
We'll have wholesome homework. Yeah. Go and give someone a hug. How's that sound?
Yeah,
Is that lame?
Don't go pick a fight with a stranger and lose. Just don't do that.
No, if you're gonna fight with somebody, win. That's our message.
God damn it, Jake! Don't encourage that.
No. I missed what you were going for.
Son of a bitch.
Anyway, that's a good place to.
There's an interesting little detail for you.
What? More dicks?
No.
Oh.
On the DVD menu, I don't know if it's the same for the Blu-ray. I have the DVD. The menu, when it highlights the different choices, it says, I am Jax, and then whatever.
Oh. Okay. I thought that was going to be more interesting.
That's still interesting. That's a callback to when we talked about the name.
Yeah.
That could confirm the name.
It's a callback to the actual movie where he says several times, I am Jax, fear
I would
of
threaten
self-loathing.
to murder you, but you're far away.
You can't do it through the internet.
No.
I'll fight you for it, though.
No, sure you will. Go ahead.
Okay.
Throw him up. I dare you.
I got some dukes. You can get these hounds. All right, whatever. Let's get out of here.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
everybody.
Talk to you next time.